What should we look for when analyzing Shakespeare? In this lecture, we're going to look for two features of Shakespeare's writing that it's useful to focus on when trying to write an analysis, either for an essay or for a short answer question. Those two features are his ability to depict human nature, in particular, his ability to make characters consistently express an emotion, and also his use of irony, when characters misunderstand the significance of their own words. We're going to be talking about Julius Caesar. And in order to understand the first part of this video, we need some background on Julius Caesar's accomplishments just before his assassination. So Julius Caesar had had a string of military victories all over the known world. He had written an account of his campaign in Gaul that is still regarded as a model of Latin prose, and he had pushed through many political reforms that improved Roman government. Now, any one of these accomplishments would make the man worthy of note, but all three of them together is really extraordinary. And it's thanks to the combination of them that Julius Caesar had acquired a fair amount of power in Rome at the time. Along with that power, he had acquired some enemies. And some of those enemies were envious of him because he had this power and thought that they should have some of that power themselves. One of these men is a man named Cassius, and Shakespeare treats him in some detail in the first act of the play. At one point in this act, Cassius is talking to Brutus and trying to convince Brutus to join him in a conspiracy against Caesar. And here Cassius tries to start making an argument about why Caesar doesn't deserve to have his power. Here's his argument. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as lief not be, as live to be in awe of such a thing as I myself. Now, this is the only passage we'll paraphrase in the lecture. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but as for me, I'd rather be dead than live to be in awe of someone no better than I am. So Caesar is someone no better than I am, according to Cassius. Let's see how he goes about making this point. So he starts by saying, I was born free as Caesar, so were you. Well, let's think about this argument. Imagine a famous person that you admire, maybe an athlete, maybe a political figure. That person was born into a social circle, but that person has also risen above that social circle. Being born into a certain position into society is no guarantee that you'll end up in the same position as everyone else who was born into that position. So Cassius's argument in this first line simply doesn't hold up to scrutiny. He goes on to say, we both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. Well, these arguments too are silly. Just because people eat the same food doesn't mean they should have the same degree of success. Just because people are good at shivering in the cold doesn't mean that they should have the same degree of accomplishment. So Cassius is ignoring Caesar's great accomplishments and trying to measure the man by standards that no one would take seriously. And this simply shows Cassius's envious nature. Cassius goes on to describe a swimming competition that he and Caesar supposedly had once. Caesar said to me, Darest thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point? Upon the word, accoutred as I was, I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. Now here Cassius is taking a break from tearing Caesar down to touting his own qualities. So he says, I plunged in order to make himself sound decisive, and bade him follow in order to make him sound like a bit of a commander. So indeed he did. So Cassius is really, again, just showing his small-mindedness and his envious nature here. He somehow thinks jumping into a river and commanding Caesar to follow him is equivalent to the actions of a man who commanded whole armies and made them incredibly successful fighting machines. Of course, this isn't the case. Cassius is simply envious of Caesar's greatness, and this passage shows it. He goes on, but ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, Help me, Cassius, or I sink. I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises bear, so from the waves did I the tired Caesar. So Cassius is using a metaphor here. He's comparing himself to Aeneas, the legendary Trojan hero, founder of Rome. He's comparing Caesar to Anchises, Aeneas' father. And you should be familiar with the significance of the city of Troy. Well, this metaphor is inappropriate in three ways. First of all, Cassius is comparing pulling Caesar out of a river to a man who's fleeing from a city, escaping from a city that's in the process of being attacked, destroyed, and burned down. There's something great about being able to effect that kind of escape from such a city. It's no big deal, on the other hand, to pull a guy out of a river. Also, Cassius is comparing himself to Aeneas. Cassius simply doesn't have the charisma or the accomplishments of a great leader. And if anything, ironically, it's Caesar who bears some comparison to Aeneas, because Caesar does have that charisma, he does have those accomplishments, and in fact, he's trying to lead Rome to a new era of greatness, in Caesar's mind at least. That's what he's doing by trying to reform the government. And finally, the greatest irony of this passage is that Cassius compares Caesar to Anchises. Now, Aeneas loved and respected his father, Anchises. Cassius has no love and no respect for Caesar. In fact, he's planning to kill the guy. So again, he's showing his envious nature by trying to, make himself out to be stronger and better than Caesar. And he's also, ironically, making comparisons that are completely inappropriate. Okay, so the final point here. We'll get things wrapped up because this lecture is a little bit short. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. His coward lips did from their colour fly. I did hear him groan. Okay, so here Cassius is referring to Caesar when he was campaigning in Spain and, again, winning more military victories. And the fit might refer to an epileptic fit. There were ancient authors who thought that Caesar had epilepsy. So Cassius's argument here seems to be that if a person has a moment of sickness, it means he doesn't deserve any of the honors that are later heaped upon him. Well, again, this is absolute nonsense. It's like saying a basketball player was sick with the flu one day and wasn't able to go to practice. So why does he deserve these great accolades and perhaps even this title? If anything, the fact that Caesar is able to campaign militarily through this kind of sickness shows the strong will and determination of Caesar, right, rather than his weakness. Cassius has a few more, one more ironic word that he uses here. He says his coward lips did from their colour fly, as if to say that Caesar is some kind of coward. But of course, ironically, it's Cassius himself who is the coward. He's the one putting together a conspiracy of, more than 10 men who are going to gang up on Caesar and kill him. Okay, so when trying to analyze Shakespeare, keep an eye out for the way that characters consistently express emotions, and also for the ironic ways in which they talk about themselves and the way that they regard themselves. Thank you.